Friday matches are set, and we are ready at the 2025 Ryder Cup. And Team USA seems pretty loose at their pictures on Thursday. Of course, Europe bringing back basically the same team they had 2 years ago when they stomped the United States. We know the pairings. We know who's playing who. Let's talk about it now. Chris Brees here in Florida. Will Gray and Paul Hodowanek are both up there at Bethpage Black. Guys, give me a sense of the feel of what it's like there that we know we finally have some matches, Will, to talk about.
I would say relief and excitement. I think people are relieved that we actually have golf to look forward to, pairings and matchups to talk about, and excitement knowing that this thing is now hours away from getting going, especially as we're going to get into it, Chris, that star-studded opening pairing. It's just going to be electric. I can't wait.
The fact that Keegan Bradley knew that Justin Thomas and Bryson DeChambeau were going to go out for who knows how long. It could have been weeks for all that we knew. We're going to go through all these matches. Paul, let's start with this first match off the top. I'm a little surprised maybe that Bryson and Justin are a slight underdog, but it's probably got to be because Rahm and Hatton have never lost together.
Yeah, we haven't seen that pairing before. Justin Thomas isn't the longest player in the world. A couple reasons. He wasn't playing particularly great leading in, but I'm very intrigued by this matchup. Placing Bryson and JT together, maybe your two biggest energy sources, and just sending them off first is just quite the strategy. Like, if they're playing well, like, the crowd is going to be nutty, and I would imagine that sets the U.S. off for a good to great session. If they're struggling, the energy is kind of weird and lulled. That's how Europe kind of turns this thing on its head early. So I think putting out a volatile pairing in the beginning and boom or bust, Bryson might try to drive that first green. Like, the scenes are going to be quite incredible out there. And so for that alone, I'm excited. And then just to see the implications that has and the reverberations that match has kind of throughout the slate is really exciting to see.
I mean, Rahm and Hatton 2-0 at Marco Simone in foursomes. John Rahm 4-0 all time in foursomes at the Ryder Cup. So there's a lot to understand with the format of why they're favored. I'm with you, Chris. If I was pricing this out, I thought the line would flip the other way, maybe minus 120 for the Americans. But maybe there's a bit to be said for the alternate shot format and having Bryson and JT. They don't have the margin for error that they would in four balls. And so I agree with Paul. It's a high variance, high risk, high reward pairing for Keegan Bradley. He's leaning into the energy factor, which I understand and I personally am looking forward to. I don't think it's going to take much from the U.S. crowds to get those guys animated and get them going, especially if potentially they fall behind in the first few holes. So there's that factor as well, but it's going to be fun to watch on the first tee especially.
My favorite part about this match is the volatility across the board in different ways. You think about the volatility of Rahm and Hatton. Head cases, okay? You usually know what you're going to get on the course with them, but in their mind, that's volatile. With JT and Bryson, their volatility is on the course. I mean, Justin Thomas is the definition of volatility. And Bryson DeChambeau, we could get the Bryson that wins U.S. Opens. We can get the Bryson that, is not hitting the broadside of a barn and can't keep it in play. So I think there is a question, Will, about Bryson and JT. You got to think that the analytics favored this. It's Bryson off the tee on those long holes. They want a dogleg lefts for Bryson, correct? But they may not be getting that. Do you think it's as simple as Bryson bombs it, JT hits the short wedge, and they try to make the putt?
I mean, that's going to be the formula on half the holes, right? I mean, JT is going to have to hit the tee shot on the other 9. I just think that the way this is set up, it really plays into, Bryson's hands and JT's more aggressive style as well. The rough, as we've talked about all week, is down. It's basically a non-factor. These guys are going to be able to lean on the driver on pretty much every hole except maybe number 2. And they're just going to be able to hit it as hard as they can and go get it again. So in that regard, it's a favorable setup for both of them. And I think that then Keegan is looking at the energy factor, the high upside of both of them, not only getting the crowd involved for their match, but in the leadoff position, potentially, getting a frothy crowd going for the matches that follow them in the morning.
And I'm actually more intrigued on the holes in which JT tees off first, because those are longer clubs that Bryson's going to have into shots than he normally would. And also, JT is prone to spraying it. And so I think we could get Bryson possibly in some weird spots, hitting some weird shots. We all know he's got the same length irons all the way through the wedges, Like it could just create kind of an interesting situation if JT is off with the driver. Like Bryson could be put in some awkward spots, and how does he handle that? Like I think those are the points I think that will make or break this match.
Let's do quick picks here on all 4 of these matches. I'm going to go Rahm and Hatton. It goes late, maybe 17, possibly 18 holes. I just think the unknown of the Americans is too much, and Rahm and Hatton too solid for too long.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head that the Rahm and Hatton are more volatile emotionally, but they are the steadier product in terms of what you're going to get inside the ropes, and their foursomes record speaks for itself. And in this format, in this tournament, that really matters. I'll go with Team Europe here.
I'm going to take the underdogs. I think they get off to a good start. Keegan Bradley said both Bryson and JT have known that they're playing this match for a really, really long time. I think this is the type of thing that Bryson and JT both get amped for. I understand why they're underdogs here, but I just think with how excited the crowd's going to be, they're going to be able to carry that, play well enough, and win this match.
I'm not really sure it is boom or bust for this first match because look at who's right behind them, guys. It's Scotty Scheffler and Russell Henley, the #1 team that we've been told about, at least for the last handful of months. On this squad, they're going out second, so even if Bryson and JT lose, here's the guys right behind them as -160 favorites. Of course, you're going to ask the question, Will, should Ludwig be playing with Victor? Do you trust Matt Fitzpatrick, who's 1-7 in Ryder Cups? They say he's playing better than his results claim. We're leaning Scheffler and Henley here, obviously, but how does this become a match?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the question you asked is the one that Paul asked to Luke Donald and the post, not really post-round presser, but post-picks presser, right? That this is, we're used to seeing from 2023, Ludwig played so well with Victor Hovland. Matt Fitzpatrick, has struggled in Ryder Cups in general, both in Europe and in the U.S., but he's 0-5 all-time on American soil. So putting these guys out Friday in foursomes is definitely an aggressive play in my mind. Luke, Paul, let me know if you heard him differently, but I didn't get a lot of details from him on what exactly he was drawn to with this pairing, other than really being complimentary of both of these guys' games. So it's a bit of an X factor for me going against potentially the strongest, pairing in Henley and Scheffler, and one that, as you said, Chris, we've been expecting for a while. I know that they're anchoring with some strength as well, but I do have some more questions than answers when it comes to putting Fitzy with Ludwig Aberg.
And there's a second side to this coin too, right? We're going to see Victor Hovland play later with Robert McIntyre. Last time we saw Robert McIntyre play with Justin Rose only in 4-ball, I believe it was 4-ball that they played together. And so we haven't seen Bobby Mack in this format, but maybe their stats and everything that said, okay, if we're going to play Bobby Mack in foursomes, this is who we need to pair him with. And then it just becomes, we have to split this duo up. But it's just an interesting move because I think it's the boldest and riskiest play Luke Donald has here. Like, I don't think anyone blames you ever for putting Ludwig and Victor back together after they beat the doors off Brooks Koepka and Scotty Scheffler last year and just were a great team. Like, no one gives that a second thought if you play them together. So for him to split them up means he's sure in that conviction, but it's also just a risky and bold move by him. So he's talked about needing to be different compared to what this team did 2 years ago. It's a different golf course. Although there's 11 people returning, it's a different team. They've all changed a little bit. And so this is that move personified. And so does it work out? Because if it doesn't, and it very well couldn't when you're playing the #1 player in the world, I think you're going to face a lot of second guessing. Like, why are you meddling in a pairing that worked? He seems confident in it, but it's the riskiest move of this whole kind of early session, I think, by either captain, was to pair Ludwig and Fitz up and split Ludwig and Victor up.
And Chris, I think with Fitzpatrick specifically, it sets Luke Donald up for, like, what do you do with him after this if you're not able to, slay Goliath? The U.S. are understandable, favorites. And then if they win this match, all of a sudden Matt Fitzpatrick is 1-8 all time. He's 0-6 in American Ryder Cups, and you're probably not going to play him in the afternoon, but how do you slot him for Saturday? Who do you pair him with? Would you potentially break this up? So it's a big way to, have a comeback story out of this early session. But for me, I really expected him to be in the 4-ball session Friday afternoon as opposed to in the morning.
Let me put it this way, guys. If you're an American fan watching the Ryder Cup the last 15 years, you've seen the player each time when they lose, or even when they win, on Europe that is just a thorn, and you hate that he's making every single big putt and he's taking all the emotion out of your team, this could be the group. I mean, this could be Matt Fitzpatrick tomorrow. If it's going to be the case, Ludwig, you don't expect him to be that fiery, but if they're going to slay those dragons, slay the number one guy, Will, it could be this pairing that kind of lights that fire, the Ian Poulter, the Sergio, the Justin Rose making big putts kind of thing. That's how I see it.
I would go to the next pairing that we're going to talk about. I think you're much more likely to get that factor out of McIntyre and Hovland than you are out of Fitzpatrick.
Okay. You guys all agree? Three for three here. We're going U.S.?
I am, yeah. But I would just say, like, I think the next match we'll talk about is one of these two. These are swing matches in that if the team that is very much the underdog flips it, like, that's when, like, that'd be massive if Ludwig and Matt can win this, or in the next one we talk about Colin and Harris English win their match, which they're not favored in. So when you talk about, I think it's more important for Europe, like when you talk about building an upset, you need to have those flips that you don't see coming. This would certainly surprise us and would take a lot of the air out of the U.S. balloon if Scotty goes down in that first session he plays.
Yeah, good point. If that first match feels even, the second match feels like it could be a flip. This could be a flip, like you had just said, Paul. What's your thought here on how Morikawa and English could keep this close? Because I personally, I've been saying for weeks, guys, because Tommy Fleetwood's been so hot lately, I think that could be a concern because you're not going to stay hot forever. His Ryder Cup performances say otherwise. It doesn't matter how he's playing. I just have this feeling that we're not going to see the exact same Tommy Fleetwood that we saw the entire month of August and when he was close to winning throughout the entire summer. But the problem for America is he's playing with Rory.
Yeah, and frankly, even if Fleetwood doesn't play that well, I'm just not that bullish on this American duo to begin with. Like, they might not even need to play their top golf. Though Fleetwood is 4-0 in his career in foursomes, 2-0 alongside Rory. So they've obviously played really well in this format together. Fleetwood's been historically great. But yeah, on the English Morikawa side, our friends at Data Golf put together a tool that basically analyzes how well people would pair together. And you go through all 12 guys and you pair them up with all the different possibilities. There's 132 different possibilities. This possibility is ranked 132nd. This is at least statistically, for Data Golf, the worst pairing that they could put together. And so I saw that and I asked Keegan Bradley about it, not specifically that stat, but you look at every other pairing and they all have bombers. Like, go through every pairing on the American and Euro side. They'll at least have one guy that they can play off some of the holes that if they line up odds or evens that really, requires you to hit a far ball. Harris and Colin are just not two of the longest players. So I put that to him, like what was the thought behind it.
You asked it nicely.
He seemed to think, he seemed to think Harris English was plenty long enough. So we will see and find out. He liked that their demeanors matched, thought they would fit well together, but at least statistically they do not. So Keegan, this is the pairing he went out the most on a limb. So yeah, maybe Fleetwood doesn't play that well, but I'm not sure he needs to, given the American side that got rolled out.
Well, let's put it this way, Will. Okay, let's say you don't like this pairing, which a lot of people don't. We were going to see Colin Morikawa in this foursomes, right? Like, we didn't think it was going to be Griffin and Young. We assumed it was going to be Morikawa.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to play Colin Morikawa, you got to play him in foursomes at this point. So that is understandable. I would maybe go to the drawing board and figure out who you might pair him with instead of Harris English. But I'm not Keegan Bradley. He didn't ask me my opinion. I think that when it comes to the Euros, with Tommy, yes, he can't play that great forever. Maybe he doesn't have the form that he had in August, but I'm old enough to remember what he did in Le Golf National in 2018, and certainly he played well 2 years ago. So the strength, especially in foursomes, that we see with that Rahm Hatton pairing is the same one that we see here for Luke Donald with Rory and Fleetwood. It's like when you sit at the roulette table and you look up and there's been 6 red numbers in a row. Are you fading the trend? Are you going with black? Are they due to lose? Or do you maybe go for another red because they know what they're doing? They know this format. They know each other's games so well. And I don't think you can say the same for Harris English and Colin Morikawa just because they don't have as much time together in this format, in this event, as Rory and Fleetwood.
We got consensus here. All three of us going Europeans.
Yep.
All right. Yep. So we're sitting at if we basically, well, Paul didn't agree on the first one, but let's say it's Europe's got a lead going into this fourth match. Okay, this was.
This is the swing. This match will decide the morning session.
You think so?
I really think this is a very much a coin flip. And I'm sorry to steal your monologue here, Chris. I just had
there's no.
What are we going to see out of Xander and Cantlay is going to be so interesting to me, because that's Keegan's attempt at replicating what Luke Donald has with Rory and Fleetwood with Rahm and Hatton. This is a pairing that has been so successful in President's Cups and Ryder Cups. We've seen them play together. This is 5 straight foursome sessions that Cantlay and Schauffele have come together, but 2025 has not been the same as 2024 was for Xander, certainly, and Cantlay as well. They've had underwhelming seasons, but can they come together and mesh well is going to be a big, question for them to answer. And Paul, I know that, we've both been noting McIntyre and Hovland played 3 times together in the practice sessions. This seemed to be one that if Luke Donald was going to deviate from the lineup that he used for both foursome sessions in 2023, this felt like one that he had high on his list. And true to form, here we go with Bobby Mack and Victor in the anchor match. Man, if they swing that, you can see if they swing that match, maybe it goes to 18. It's 20 yards from the first tee to the 18th green. Maybe you swing a point right as the 4 balls go out in the afternoon. It could be a real critical point in the scheme of things.
Yeah, this to me is just like the wild card match, up and down, in that I really don't know what we're going to get from at least 3 out of the 4. I feel like we have a decent idea what we're getting from Cantlay, but Xander said he's progressing well in terms of just getting back into form, obviously after taking a long time off to welcome the birth of his son, but he didn't play Tour Championship. He was not good before that. So you could tell me Xander turns it on for this and he looks like the Xander of old, would not be surprised. But if he also is not playing well, you're like, well, yeah, he hasn't played well for a long time. And then you go over to the Euro side, Victor Hovland's just like, you never know what you're going to get, at least this season. Like, we remember the Victor Hovland from the Ryder Cup 2 years ago, and he was amazing, but he was also coming off arguably being the best player in the world for the previous 3 months. He had won BMW, he had won the Tour Championship. Like, that was the peak of Victor Hovland. So yes, he was great then. He is not what he was then now. So he's warming up with all these different swing, doohickeys on the range this week, like clearly trying to feel something. And so how does that translate? And then Bobby Mack, obviously a better player than he was 2 years ago, and he played well then. But also, like, we saw it at BMW, the crowds got to him a little bit. He shushed them. He talked about him in the press. He's got rabbit ears more than anyone else on this team. Like, he is going to hear what the crowds throw at him. And so how does he respond in that cauldron? He had the friendly confines for his first one. How does he respond? Like, I don't know. I think he's going to fire him up, and either his blood's boiling and he plays really well, or it goes the opposite direction. So this is such a hard one for me to try to wrap my head around, because while all the other matches I feel some certainty with what I'm getting from most of the players, I don't know what I'm getting from almost anyone in this match.
Yeah, Hovland has. Go ahead, Will.
Sorry, Chris. I was going to say that on the McIntyre thing, I agree about the rabbit ears and how that's going to be a huge factor for him. But this is one where I feel like Luke Donald has to know something, right? He has to understand or see how these two guys, relate and bond, and to figure that Victor is the guy that can hold McIntyre's hand and really lead him and kind of, grab him on the shoulders and say, listen, you're still in this. We're still good. There's going to be those moments in this match, potentially, certainly in some of the matches as the week goes on. So I think there's something about the dynamic between these two, interpersonally, that maybe draws Luke Donald's attention toward them, in addition to how the games match up.
Well, and everything you just said is the quintessential reason of why people see the Americans as a problem with their team. Because if we call this the catalyst lineup for Xander and Patrick, what if they go out and lose? We know we're probably not going to see them play again if they lose, especially if they get trounced. And then you wonder, who do you pair these guys with again? You pair them with somebody else. They both are going to play again if they lose. And then you got another pairing. You have another question mark. As opposed to the Europeans, these two guys could lose. Victor and Robert could lose. They have 3 other players that Luke Donald feels comfortable playing them with, and they just rinse and repeat, try new combos. That's what America has always been jealous of, Will, in the last 15 years, is the cohesiveness. They don't have to have pods. They don't have to have 4 guys that sit together and play for 3 straight days. They have everybody playing together, and if Xander and Patrick don't play well, I mean, this team's probably in trouble if these two don't play well.
Potentially. I mean, listen, Keegan Bradley has 4 guys on his bench tomorrow, just like Luke Donald does, and maybe they're at a different caliber, at a different experience level from a Ryder Cup perspective, but you've still got, Ben Griffin and JJ Spawn and some accomplished guys, Cameron Young, who are ready to go in terms of your rookie group. You put them out probably Friday afternoon in the 4 balls. I would imagine, Keegan didn't tip his hand, but he said it seemed like they've got a plan in place. I don't think that anything that happens in the morning will impact their plans for pairings for the afternoon. So I would expect to see everyone play at least one match tomorrow, and then maybe have some momentum from the afternoon that can influence who you want to pair when you go back to foursomes Saturday morning. So yes, I think if you're plotting a U.S. path to victory, it probably does include a couple of points from Xander and Schauffele combined, if not separate. But I don't know that this is one where, oh my gosh, if we lose one match, the ship is on fire, we've got to rebuild.
And Keegan said, like, they've had pairings set for a while.
Yeah.
And as I'm looking through these 3 pairings, it feels to me like if things go well and if they hold serve and if no one gets blown out, I would imagine at least 3 of these foursomes teams probably play foursomes again. And I would count Schauffele and Cantlay in that, even if they lose, if it's not embarrassing.
You think so?
Like I think they go back out. I think the Colin Harris English one is the flex spot to throw a Cam Young and Ben Griffin together, a second day after the nerves of those are 2 rookies. So maybe there's just worries about sending 2 rookies out together in the first session. Maybe tomorrow after they both played 4-ball, that's a matchup that you put out there. So Cantlay's had experience playing with Sam Burns. I don't know. I think we see Cantlay Schauffele both foursome sessions, barring a 9-7 situation like we saw 2 years ago.
Hey, I got no problem calling this match a tie, a halve, whatever you want to verbo lingo it. Paul, I'm going to go halve. What about you?
It's kind of where I was leaning to, just to have one in there. I feel like we always have one, and
Right.
These matchups feel too even for me to say 3-1 US. I want to see it as a 2.5, 1.5. So based on everything else I've said, I'd go a half here.
Just for the record, boys, the over-under for the week is 4.5 matches that will end in a tie. So maybe we keep that in the back of our head as we're prognosticating here. I will go the U.S. by the slimmest of margins. This is the toughest one for me to call, but I think Xander and Cantlay get it done. I think we're looking at 2-2 when everyone heads to the locker room for some orange slices.
I think the under is hit. I did the math on that. I think the under has hit on the over/under 4.5 in the last 5-6 Ryder Cups. By the way, there's like 150 markets out there if you want to bet on this stuff. We're just touching on a couple of things. Will, I know they have the breakfast tomorrow morning on Friday at Bethpage. Tell us about that.
Yes, breakfast at Bethpage. We're looking forward to this. We're going to be out on the first tee. It's going to be great scenes, but for folks at home, you can tune in on RyderCup.com. You can tune in on Peacock. Colin Jost, a bunch of celebrities are going to be coming through. They're going to be hosting breakfast at Bethpage from 6 to 8. So 1 hour will be out in front of the first tee. Then they're going to shift over when they're actually playing some golf. But it's going to be a fun program all 3 days ahead of the matches that are going to get started. But listen, I don't think anyone's going to get a lot of sleep up here tonight as we get ready for an early morning. But it's going to be a lot of fun tomorrow at Bethpage. That crowd's going to be ready to go.
And the good news is we'll be back all week long here with our match recaps and previews here at the 2025 Ryder Cup.